Welcome to Cool Talk and the countdown to my 200 favorite films. Number 20, A Clockwork Orange. Malcolm McDowell plays Alex, a juvenile delinquent in a near-future nightmarish world. In the first 20 minutes, they take drugs at a bar, get into a fight with another gang, beats up a homeless person, and finally breaks into a random home and rapes a woman in front of her elderly husband. He is evil. Eventually, he ends up in jail for murder, gets reprogrammed to be nonviolent, and is released. Now he is passive and unable to defend himself. The film has something to say about freedom of choice, but it also exposes a world where drugs are sold to minors, sexual objectification is everywhere in the culture, social workers are abusive, police are brutal, families are negligent, and finally, politicians exploit criminals for their own benefits. Alex is a byproduct of this world, and it is sick. It's also, believe it or not, funny. Number 19, 12 Years a Slave. A near-perfect film. Many choose not to see a slavery film, thinking it's going to be depressing, and yeah, slavery is bad, I get it. But 12 Years a Slave goes even further. Director Steve McQueen does an excellent job of portraying a slave society where there is a machine going on, where to be against slavery, to try to attempt change, was dangerous even for a white man. The structure affects the minds of all involved, both master and slave, and keeps the slave machine going. The brutality is horrendous. And let me not forget the superb acting of Lupita Nyong'o and Chiwetel Ejiofor. Catch it. It's amazing. You will never forget it. Number 18, Heat. Al Pacino plays a homicide detective who is obsessed with his job, full of angst, and going through his third bad marriage. He is chasing high-collar criminal gang run by cool, calculating Robert De Niro. They share one scene together and it's now legendary. Michael Mann directed this crime thriller. Now, Pacino and De Niro are at the top of their game. Now, the movie's a little long, but watching these two actors jam it up and watching the scenes like the bank shootout is an absolute thrill. In fact, the bank shootout is among the best of all movie history. I have to say the rest of the cast is also superb. There are too many love angles or love triangles and subplots going on, like I said before, but outside of that, well, what could I say? Heat is a real treat. Number 17, The Wild Bunch. At the beginning of the film, you see children playing with a scorpion that's being eaten by ants, trying to tell us, I guess, that we are violent from birth. The movie bridges its story with two over-the-top Western shoot-'em-ups that go on and on. It's about a group of bandits who are old and over the hill, and they need one last score so they can retire. It's a little sad to see the leader, William Holden, struggling to get on his horse and lead this group of misfits. It's also director Sam Peckinpah's masterpiece. There are fade-outs, overlapping images, and attention to details that puts The Wild Bunch above most other westerns. And it drags out the robbery scenes and the violence, so they are both violent and poetic. Number 16, Serpico. Al Pacino plays Frank Serpico, the first police officer who testified against police corruption, making himself a marked man. The film is about the ordeal he went through. He starts off as an idealistic police officer who is a little shocked to see that other police officers take a free meal, but he kind of overlooks that. But later on, when the drug money starts coming in and the real corruption comes forth, he is unable to look the other way. He is an idealist. Now, this is directed by Sidney Lumet. Sidney Lumet has an authentic feel, a real grasp for New York City. He's done a couple of films about police corruption, including Prince of the City. Now, the locations here, the actors, everything feels real, feels authentic, and Al Pacino is superb. A man who just wants to do his job, but can't ignore the bribes and the graft that goes on around him. He's an honest cop in a bad place. Number 15, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. Now, I'll give Star Wars A New Hope and Star Wars The Force Awakens honorable mentions, but The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite in the series. It's full of action, It ends up as a downer, but it brings us closer to the characters. Luke goes into a character arc as he starts finding his destiny. Han Solo and Princess Leia, well, they pursue their romance. Now, Empire and The Force Awakens follows a trend of not using George Lucas's wooden acting style that he inexplicably prefers, and I'm happy for it. The special effects are awesome for its day, and it's a gripping ride. Star Wars is a lot of fun. Number 14, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Terminator 2 is much better than the first one, and remember, the first one is on my list. There are bigger sets, more special effects, greater odds, a faster robot. But director James Cameron, even being allowed a much bigger budget, doesn't allow these huge elements to get away from him. He never lets go of the humanity of the actors involved, so the menace feels real. Linda Hamilton plays Sarah Connor, a woman who's a great action figure, but she's paid a terrible price. She's distanced from her son. Her son himself is a little bit confused. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is an upgraded droid, and he is great. Number 13, Forrest Gump. Tom Hanks and director Robert Zemeckis join forces and give us an instant classic, Forrest Gump. Forrest is slow-minded. He was bullied as a child and ridiculed throughout his life, but he keeps a level of decency that we can all learn from. He loves his mama. He is fiercely loyal to both his lifelong love and his friends. He gets swept up in history and has a perfect reason to be disillusioned with the world, but he stays true to himself. Now, some have criticized the film for sugarcoating it. So many issues such as child abuse, bullying, the Vietnam War, racism, AIDS. Maybe it has been sugarcoated. But if we were all decent like Forrest Gump, maybe most of these problems would never exist. A simple, idealistic, unrealistic solution, but as good as any solution out there. Number 12, Platoon. Platoon was the first Vietnam War film directed by a Vietnam War veteran, Oliver Stone. The film takes its time to show us the boredom, the exhaustion, the mosquitoes, the heat, the never-ending humps all over the Asian mountains and jungles. All this before the first battle. And when the first battle comes, it feels like a horror movie. Charlie Sheen plays Taylor, and I think Charlie Sheen was miscast here. I could always tell that he was acting. I wonder what would have happened if they had chosen, say, Leonardo DiCaprio or Johnny Depp. But the scenes are so powerful we can overlook that. Willem Dafoe and Tom Berenger play Sergeants Elias and Barnes. Two men with leadership qualities, but they are polar opposites in temperament. It's as if they were the angel and the devil sitting on Taylor's shoulder, feeding him the essence of good and evil. This film has something to say about morality, or the lack of, and the duality of man. Can we be good? Can we be evil? And what can we do about it? It's this moral ambiguity that makes the movie interesting. We have to take sides. The conflict in this movie is not the war itself, but the conflict within ourselves. Interesting take. Number 11, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Now, I made a whole video on this movie, a deeper analysis, which I invite all of you to watch. It's basically a patient in a mental institution rebelling against the tyranny of the head nurse. The film is loaded with symbolisms about conformity and control. It's been accused of racism and misogyny, but basically it doesn't answer any of the questions that it presents. Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher are perfect as the patient and the nurse, and so is the rest of the cast. It's amazing how this movie has been so successful while dealing with a subject matter that a lot of us would rather not deal with. I think the appeal here is kind of a David and Goliath story. And also, well, we can identify with living in our own cuckoo's nest, where we have to decide whether we want to conform to society's rules or express our own personal individuality. These are interesting questions, ones that I like to ponder. Anyway, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Catch it. Hey! Okay, we're getting close to the wire here. Everybody, click on my next video to continue the countdown of my favorite films of all time. This is Cool Talk. Thanks for watching.